Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Breeze, Breezeway Productions' The Breeze, where we bring you the latest in independent films that are currently touring through film festivals domestically and internationally. And we have a wonderful filmmaking team here for the film Lamyas Poem. And it is screening this year at the Vancouver International Film Festival. We have with us Alex Cronemer and Sam Kadi. How are you guys?
We're doing great.
Great. Thanks for
How are
having us.
you?
Doing good, doing good. Excited to talk a little bit about the film. So tell our viewers a little bit about Lamyas Poem.
Well, Lamyas Poem tells the story of a 12-year-old Syrian girl who's fleeing the violence of her country. And along the way, she's given a book of poetry by the famous poet Rumi, who lived 8 centuries ago. And the book becomes a magical gateway where she meets young Rumi when he was a boy fleeing the violence of his time, and helps him write the poem that 800 years later saves her life.
Wow. Where did your inspiration to make this film come from?
Well, it came a few years ago in the midst of the worst of the Syrian refugee crisis, where it was very much in the news. And I came across a news article about a group of Syrian refugees in Athens, in an Athens park, who had formed a reading group, like a book club. And first of all, it was amazing to imagine that that they had brought books with them of all the few possessions they could carry.
Yeah.
They had brought books with them, and that the article went on to mention a few of the books they were reading, and one of them was a book of Rumi's poetry. And that really kind of surprised me, because I thought of Rumi always as sort of the poet of love. I couldn't understand how people in the predicament that they were in, having experienced the tragedies and the traumas that they had experienced, would find anything of value or usefulness in Rumi. But then I went to read a little bit and research a little bit more about Rumi, and I learned that Rumi was also a refugee, fleeing the Mongol invasion, and was a displaced person for about 7 years.
Yeah.
And that really, at a deeper level, much of his poetry comes out of a place of loss. It begins in a place of loss before it takes the reader to a place of beauty, or a place of acceptance, or a place of inspiration.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I learned that Rumi, as a boy, maybe because of his experience, was haunted by terrifying dreams that he thought people were chasing him to hurt him, he thought.
Right.
And his father helped him understand, or at least put out the idea, that maybe they're not chasing you to hurt you. Maybe they're chasing you because they need you. They need your help. They need your words. And I suddenly had this moment of like flash of, is it possible to imagine that those refugees in that Athens park, who needed him so much, were the very same people who was haunting his dreams?
Yeah.
And so that's how the story began.
Rumi is constantly quoted to this day, one of the most popular poets. There's a lot of the words that are said from him are very what's the word to say it? Relevant towards issues and situations and mindset and emotions, and it still remains powerful to this day. So I can see how you correlated one era's problems to another era's problems through the medium of animation and time travel and whimsical fairy tale-ness in this aspect of this film. So Sam, how did you two link up? Have you worked together in the past on different projects, or is this your first project together?
No, me and Alex, we go way back as friends. We've known each other, but Alex used the line of work that he's been working on for the most part was documentaries, and for PBS and the way, I mean, what I do is mainly like live action. If it's a drama, actually I've done one documentary, but mainly more the commercial side of the of the business. So when Alex wrote his first narrative scripted material, he sent it to me, especially with a story that has somebody who's born in Syria and Aleppo, and I was born actually in Syria and Aleppo. And Rumi, and I'm a huge fan of Rumi. So when he sent me the script, I was like ecstatic. I was like, extremely excited to read an early draft of the script. And I just, as a friend, I remember I went back, and as Alex know, I won't hold back. I mean, with bunch of notes and a lot of thoughts. And as a creative person myself, as a director and writer, producer myself, I was like, oh my God, this is great. If you can do this, if you can do that. But just as a friend, like I didn't have really any attachment to the project at that point. And Alex was kind enough to to offer me this. Like, Sam, how about you become the producer on this? I mean, this is, you can bring a lot to the table. Make sure this is as as authentic as we want it to be. And let's we've been talking about collaborating for a long time. Let's do this. And I couldn't say no to a girl from Aleppo and a Rumi project, and I was like, absolutely, let's do this. And the rest is history.
Yeah, I did enjoy watching some of the segments where she would be staring out the window and she thought that she saw a dragon, but they were actually just two red glowing eyes. So you had a little bit of a crossover between what was reality and what was fantasy. And then seeing like at them as she was going to sleep, hearing the bombs dropping right next to where her bed was, and then going back into the story. It was kind of just, did you try to capture how a child was trying to maintain their childhood whimsy, so to say, while they were living through such trying times in Syria?
Well, what we're trying to do in some of the scenes you described, where she's, for example, looking out the window, like you said, she sees what she thinks are the red eyes of a dragon.
Right.
And after she turns and runs away, they turn out to be the cigarettes. Of soldiers, right? So we try to, in the end, in the beginning, to show a strong demarcation between the real world and the fantasy world that she drifts into. But as the story progresses, the fantasy world and the real world begin to mesh together. And then towards the end of the film, they're indistinguishable. One is influencing the other. So that was the idea. The idea really was that as she was going deeper into these traumatic experiences, but also deeper into this fantasy world that she shared, the curtain between the two is lowered, and they become one.
Yeah.
So like you're saying, there's bombing that she in the real world that then carries into her dream world. The sounds of buildings collapsing in the dream world, or the sounds of buildings collapsing in the real world, and so forth.
Yeah. So we were talking about your company, Unity Productions Foundation. It's an award-winning media nonprofit. So when a company is a nonprofit, where did you raise the funds to bring on the rest of the cast, the crew, and then also the animators that were a part of it? So is this all going to be like donated for a better cause?
Yes. So we're a mission-driven organization. You mentioned earlier our mission is to work for peace and understanding in the world by creating a better dialogue and a better understanding of the world's religions, with a special focus on Islam. So most of our stories deal with that in one regard. So we get support from various grants, many famous granting organizations we apply to. We get a lot of support from individuals who believe in the mission. And of course, the films generally do earn some income in one way or the other, and all that goes back into the nonprofit to support furthering the mission of the work.
That is a first. I've never met a company that's done that before with their projects. I think that it's fantastic. I think that you're making a film so that it's a medium for audiences to enjoy it, to understand what pieces of history were happening in present day and in past. And then also after the film is completed, once it goes out and makes money and it comes back to the nonprofit, those funds are used to help with certain causes that are portrayed in the film. Is that about right?
In fact, we just received a large grant, $250,000, actually a bit more than $250,000, based on the film, to do an outreach project to at-risk youth. In the same way that Rumi's writings helps Lamia, it's the idea of using writing and shared writing to help out at-risk youth overcome their traumas and difficulties. And that's a big grant that we got from the Doris Duke Foundation, coming directly out of the film and the themes of the film.
That is fantastic, gentlemen. I really tip my hat, my imaginary hat, off to you guys for making these films from a nonprofit sense, and that congratulations on getting the grants, and as well as congratulations on the screening for the Vancouver International Film Festival. We hope that audiences will be able to check out Lamyas Poem, which is screening this year. And in closing, is there anything that you'd like to say to the Vancouver International Film Festival for the official selection into this year's festival?
I'll let Sam answer that one.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely thank Vancouver Film Festival very much for selecting us, where we could not find a better platform to premiere or to have our North American premiere than Canada and Vancouver, because this is we haven't mentioned yet, but this is like a Canadian co-production. This project, I mean, the animation
got a little bit of a communication jam.
Yeah, what Sam was saying was, we're happy to be at Can you hear me?
Yes, I got you.
Yeah, Sam was just saying we're very happy to be at Vancouver, and for many reasons, but also in part because our production, the animation team is Canadian, and so are the two leads, Lamia, Mina Masood and Millie Davis. So thank you, Vancouver, for choosing us. We couldn't be happier to be there, and we look forward to the festival.
October
Awesome.
9 and October 10. We'd love to see the people there, and hopefully there will be Q&A afterwards, and we'd love to communicate and share this love, this story of love and letter of love with the Canadians.
Awesome.
Canadians known for being nice. You bring them a project like this, they will be even nicer.
We'll put all of that information in the lower thirds while we're editing the video. So I wanted to thank you, Alex and Sam, for coming to talk to me today, and I hope you guys enjoy the Vancouver International Film Festival.
Thank you.
Thank you.